Society has been coarsening. What role does journalism have in developing better discourse, civility in politics?
Well, I think we need to continue to think the best of our viewers and to give them the best and to talk to them as if and deal with them and imagine them as rational, civil people. Now, sometimes we're going to be wrong about that, but I don't know how to do it otherwise. I mean, media is not the sole source of the cruelty and the brutality of American life today, but it's part of it. Starting 20 or 25 years ago, these slugfests on cable channels where you try to outshout and humiliate others is I don't know if it's the cause of or a reflection of what was happening elsewhere. Politics has become much more polarized, so that you have a member of Congress, when the President of the United States is delivering his State of the Union message, saying, you lie, you know. I mean, that's not the way you can engage another mind. And that's true of our business as well. We're a cruel society these days. The culture of cruelty is spreading in this country. So you get debates in which the audience applauds when a candidate for president talks about letting a man die because he has no insurance. I mean, yeah, I worry about the state of not only of discourse, but of personal and civil relations in our society today.
You prefer news of the mind. What is that?
News of the mind. Eric Sevareid told me that. He said, Bill, Eric Sevareid was a great first-generation broadcaster at CBS News, and for years, the formidable and admirable essayist on the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite. And when he retired and I succeeded him, he said, I urge you to make your beat news of the mind. And by that he meant the mind of the poet, which often contains what we need to know about the world that you never see on the evening news, the work in the laboratory of a scientist, the knowledge of an economist, the insights of a novelist, the artist, what makes an artist. It's the motivating force in human beings that is creative and gives expression and purpose to lives.
You prefer to talk about evidence rather than ideology. You say your work is based on that. There are people, though, that don't believe that at all.
No.
And indeed demonize you.
Yes.
What do you think about that? How do you respond to that demonization?
Well, I'm saddened about it. I mean, when you hear Rush Limbaugh or Bill O'Reilly or someone like that make something up about you, of course it hurts, but it doesn't deter me. It can. If it did, I'd have been gone a long time ago. Ideology is a worldview that can be defended contrary to the reality of the world. And I really do believe that journalists in particular need to take the audience as close as possible to the verifiable truth. Here's what I think about the story, but let me tell you how I got to this. And you lay out the argument, lay out the case. You were trained as a lawyer. You know the importance of developing your case, presenting your evidence, making your argument, and drawing your conclusions. We owe that to our audience as well. Just as you owe it to the jury, I owe that to my audience and the public. So yes, I'm demonized because my reporting often leads to the exact opposite conclusion of a partisan, an ideologue, a propagandist who's trying to promote the partisan view. I mean, Fox News is an arm of the Republican National Committee. It's become more than an arm. If Fox News today, the Republican Party works for Fox News, not vice versa. So you have to watch Fox News with that amber light in your head, flashing as you watch. What are they trying to do? What are they trying to tell me? How are they spinning the news? Well, if my investigative report reaches an opposite position from their partisan agenda, they're going to attack me, or any journalist.
Criticism comes with the territory, but how much does that criticism invade the independence of the press?
It scares a lot of people off. It intimidates a lot of people, yes. That's one reason why independent journalism is threatened today, both by a shortage of funds and by the by the enormous firepower that can be brought to bear on it by Rush Limbaugh or Fox News. It's not easy to be an independent journalist today, not only because you have to find the means to support your journalism if you're not working for a corporation or a big company, but you also have to take the constant barrage, the heavy artillery that is landed on you every day by people trying to advance a partisan agenda.
You gave a speech in 2007 in Memphis in which you talked about how big media is narrowing the information that we get and making it more homogeneous, actually, in content. What do you think needs to be done to create more diversity in the media?
Well, the web has come along as an antidote to the homogenization of corporate media, and I still look to the web for the voices that I know are independent and that are journalistically driven. There are a lot of websites, good websites, that I go to every morning to check in on what other people think about the world. We need to find means of support, as I said earlier, for public television and public radio, because whatever our mistakes and whatever our flaws, the fact is we think of, and I'm repeating myself, but we think of our audience as citizens, not as partisans or consumers. And I keep hoping that we might have, since newspapers are dying and good investigative journalism is disappearing, that somebody will come along, an entrepreneur, and figure out, like Bill Paley did at CBS or the Sulzbergers did at the New York Times, you can make a lot of money by giving people the information they need. I still hope we rediscover the capitalist base of an informed society. So I don't give up hope.
You have tackled many thorny and controversial issues and topics over the years. What else would you like to tackle?
Good question. Oh, time's running out, but I would like to know what's the basis of a moral life. What does it mean to be here for such a short, no matter how long you live, life is short. I'd like to know how the universe came about. I'd like to know what makes a life. I mean, all of those metaphysical, interesting questions that I think most people think about them in their off moments when they can. I do. I know my father did, my mother. There's so much more I'd like to explore.
You have done so many things. Born in Hugo, Oklahoma, spent a lot of time in Oklahoma, later Texas, and the world. But when you take a look at your career, what has influenced your journalism?
My teachers, mostly, when I was in high school, English teachers who doubled as journalism advisors, Selma Brutze, who taught me English and journalism, Inez Hughes, who used to stand in front of us and read poetry because she said, "You're not experienced enough to understand the meaning of love or loss, so I'll read the poetry to you." I can still hear her voice reading Gray's Elegy in a Country Churchyard, making me aware of the power of language. Teachers who taught me the importance of listening. I mean, you learn a lot more when you're listening than you do when you're talking. And so it was a cadre of teachers all the way from the 9th grade through my senior year and on into graduate school who touched my life and opened my ears and my eyes to what growing up in Hugo, Oklahoma, or Marshall, Texas, which is across the Red River, you might miss.
Do you think that there is anybody else out there that is ready to pick up that baton and carry the torch? What do journalists need to hear from Bill Moyers about the future?
Those of us still around need to mentor those coming along. Those of us who've been fortunate to be in the maturing of broadcast journalism in particular need to stand up and argue for continuing that tradition. We need to be true to our calling and help others see journalism as a calling, and we need to speak truth to power while we have the chance. But, I've often said that Americans are not more virtuous than other people. They're not more intelligent than other people. What makes us different is that First Amendment that enables the passengers in the ship to climb up on the bridge and grab the arm of the captain and say, "That's an iceberg out there. Turn this ship before it's too late." That's what we should be doing, those of us who still have a forum, who still have a platform. And I'm not pessimistic, because it's not in my nature to be pessimistic. Who knows that there's another Edward Murrow, or a dozen other Edward Murrows, or Eric Severides, or Charles Collingwoods and Charles Carrolls coming along. There are. I know there are far more talented individuals in number than there were when I was growing up. They just don't have the outlets today to do their best work. And as a society, we need to make sure that we provide those forums for people who serve us by telling us the truth.
What do you see as the future for the conversation of democracy?
Many more voices, not only political and partisan voices, but voices from the rest of the world. A third Hispanic. Texas, my other home state, is a third Hispanic today. The immigration from Africa, from the Middle East, from Central Europe. Democracy used to be a homogenous conversation. A bunch of white men at Philadelphia writing a constitution, all looking alike and speaking alike. And the whole story of democracy is to continue to enlarge the franchise. The Declaration said, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the Constitution said, but not for slaves, not for women, not for workers, not for immigrants. And there are two sides of the American story: power and property and wealth, trying to protect their interests, and people who believe life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, include me. And this fight goes on all the time. And so I think it's going to be noisy. I think it's going to be messy. I think it's going to be perplexing. But of course, as we said earlier, but it's still the voice of the only, it's still the voice of the only exercise in self-government that survived 250 years. And we have to make it work, because the alternative is the government of the few, by the few, for the few.
Bill Moyers, thank you for going on the record.
My pleasure.